The neighbor changed the Wi-Fi password, and police uncovered something far more terrifying. Brookvale, Indiana was the kind of place where time seemed to settle like morning mist on a well-kept lawn. Children rode their bikes in looping figure eights. Mailboxes stood like sentinels beside every driveway, and neighbors nodded politely but rarely spoke more than necessary. There was an almost eerie calm to the neighborhood, a stillness that made any deviation stand out like a cracked window in a row of pristine homes. Malik Thompson had chosen Brookvale precisely for that quiet. As a software engineer who worked from home, he needed solitude like most people needed sunlight. His days were filled with code and coffee and the occasional podcast playing softly in the background. His lawn was trimmed every Thursday morning. His recycling bins were sorted with surgical precision. But beyond his front yard, Malik remained a mystery to nearly everyone on the block. Carolyn Pierce lived 2 houses down and 1 fence over. Widowed for nearly a decade, she had turned her attention to neighborhood watch duties with an intensity that bordered on professional surveillance. She knew who left their garbage out too long, who drove too fast down Chestnut Avenue, and who lingered in their cars past midnight. And Malik Thompson, quiet and distant and always busy with something she could never quite understand, had long been a subject of her private concern. On a breezy Thursday afternoon with clouds rolling over the sun like a slow-moving curtain, Malik sat in his small home office staring at his computer screen. The Wi-Fi had been glitchy all morning, disconnecting him from his company's secure server and interrupting his meetings. With a sigh, he opened the admin panel of his router to diagnose the issue. As he scanned the list of connected devices, something caught his eye. A name he didn't recognize. Brookvale_X01. It looked like any ordinary device name. Generic. Boring. But it wasn't his. It had no assigned IP. And worst of all, it had administrator-level access. That should have been impossible. Frowning, Malik disconnected the device and immediately began changing his network password. He initiated a deeper scan, blocking unknown MAC addresses and restricting access to trusted devices only. But something still felt off. The name Brookvale was not random. It was deliberate. It was specific. And it was close. Wanting a stronger signal while resetting his router settings, Malik stepped out onto his front porch, phone in hand, watching the progress bar crawl across the screen. The late afternoon sun had dipped behind a row of sycamore trees, casting long shadows across his lawn. His phone buzzed with confirmation. New password set. All unknown devices removed. Or so he thought. From her kitchen window, Carolyn Pierce peered through a pair of old floral curtains and narrowed her eyes. Malik was standing outside fiddling with his phone with an expression she decided looked too intense for anything innocent. Her instincts kicked in. Her fingers trembled slightly as she picked up the phone and dialed. 911, what is your emergency? I don't know exactly, but I think one of my neighbors is doing something suspicious, she said in a hushed voice. He's always quiet, always acting strange, and now he's out there on his phone like he's hacking into something. You should check it out. The dispatcher promised to send a unit. And in Brookvale, a suspicious call meant prompt response. 6 minutes later, the quiet hum of a police cruiser rolled to a stop at the curb outside Malik's home. The flashing lights painted red and blue streaks across his porch. Malik turned sharply, heart lurching at the sight of 2 uniformed officers stepping out. Detective Simon Vega adjusted his belt and approached with a firm calm. Behind him, Officer Riley Munoz followed, scanning the yard with quiet diligence. Good afternoon, Sir, Vega began. We received a report of suspicious behavior in the area. Do you mind telling us what you're doing? Malik blinked, clearly confused. I was just changing my Wi-Fi password. There was a device connected that didn't belong. Carolyn had stepped out by then, walking briskly toward the group. He's always sneaking around, she announced. I've seen him up at all hours. And today he's out here like he's trying to break into something. Maybe a security system. It looked strange, that's all I'm saying. Vega raised an eyebrow, turning back to Malik. Do you mind if we take a look at your network settings just to be sure? Malik hesitated only for a moment. He had nothing to hide. He nodded and waved them inside. They stepped into the modest living room and followed him to the small workspace in the corner. Malik opened his laptop, navigated to the router's control panel, and brought up the list of connected devices. Brookvale_X01 was still there. I thought I removed it, he said quietly. Vega leaned in. Is that the one you didn't recognize? Yes. And look at the permissions. It has access to admin controls. That shouldn't be possible. Munoz frowned. That name is too specific. Vega nodded slowly. Let's check the data stream. See where it's pointing. Malik typed in a few commands, running a trace through the router's activity logs. A new screen opened showing a list of IPs and data endpoints. One of them flashed repeatedly. An outbound link connected to his home security system. His security cameras. Malik's throat tightened. That device is pulling video from my surveillance setup. It's watching through my cameras. Vega's voice dropped. That's not all. It's pinging other addresses. Not just your house. They stared at the screen. More endpoints emerged. More homes. More cameras. Oh my God, Munoz whispered. It's not just watching you. It's watching the whole neighborhood. Malik felt the weight of a quiet horror sink into his chest. And that was just the beginning. The silence inside Malik's home deepened as Detective Vega and Officer Munoz followed him into the living room. The walls were lined with bookshelves and a few framed photos, modest and neat, the space reflecting a man who lived with quiet discipline. Malik sat at his desk, the glow of the laptop screen casting a pale light across his focused face. He opened the router control panel again. The strange device, Brookvale X01, was still there, still active, still connected. See that, Malik said, his voice calm but strained. It never left. I changed the password, I blocked unknown MAC addresses, and yet it forced its way back in. That means whoever set this up knew exactly what they were doing. Vega leaned closer, examining the screen. He motioned for Munoz to take notes while Malik pulled up the router logs. Here, Malik said, pointing to a scrolling list of timestamps and digital addresses. That one. See it? That IP address has been accessing my security feed. My home cameras. But it gets worse. He clicked again, navigating to the surveillance interface of his system. A separate window appeared. The IP had tunneled through his feed to access other cameras, ones not belonging to him. This does not make sense, Munoz said quietly. You are saying your system was hijacked to breach other homes. Malik nodded. Watch this. He ran a trace. A cascading stream of addresses popped up. A few Malik recognized from his own system. Others were foreign. And then one file loaded in a small video box at the bottom of the screen. A timestamp. A feed. The image blinked to life. A living room. Muted light through drawn curtains. A beige couch. A crystal bowl on the coffee table filled with old peppermint candies. Carolyn gasped. That's my house. That's my living room. The footage showed the empty space in still clarity. Carolyn stepped closer and then abruptly froze. Her hand flew to her mouth. This cannot be. How is that possible? The video continued silently. A few seconds passed. Then someone entered the room. It was her. Herself. In a housecoat carrying a mug of tea. Sitting down with a sigh. She had no idea she was being watched. The older woman staggered back a step as if struck. Her face turned pale. She looked to Malik and then to Vega. Her voice barely a whisper. You are telling me someone has been spying on me? On my home? Malik nodded. Someone in this neighborhood built a network of unauthorized access. They tapped into multiple homes. Not just yours. Not just mine. This is deliberate. And it is personal. Vega straightened. His tone sharpened. This is no longer a misunderstanding between neighbors. This is a serious cybercrime. I am calling the digital forensics team. We need them here now. He stepped aside to radio dispatch. His voice lowered but firm. Malik turned back to his laptop. His hands moved quickly over the keys. He pulled deeper into the data tunnels following each digital fingerprint. Lines of code scrolled past his eyes faster than most could comprehend. He was searching for the origin point. Malik exhaled. Wait, I think I found something. Vega and Munoz leaned in again. There. That IP. It is not an external signal. It is local. It is inside this neighborhood. Vega narrowed his eyes. You are sure? Positive. The signal is transmitting from an address just a few houses away. Can you isolate it? Vega asked. Malik nodded and ran another trace. He clicked through map overlays and service provider logs. After a tense moment, the address came into focus. A digital marker blinked on the screen. That is it. That is the source of the signal. Vega leaned over Malik's shoulder and read aloud. 74 Willow Lane. Everyone turned. Carolyn's voice cracked in disbelief. That is my address. That is my house. No, Vega said slowly. Your house number is 76. Carolyn froze. She turned slowly toward Malik. Who lives at 74? Malik answered without hesitation. Tyler Pierce. Carolyn's knees almost buckled. She grabbed the back of the chair to steady herself. No, that cannot be. Not Tyler. Vega looked at her. Who is Tyler? He is my grandson. He moved in last year after he dropped out of college. He has been looking for work. Staying in the basement. Malik watched her closely. How much time does he spend at home? Too much. He is always on his computer. Always closed off. I thought he was just struggling to get his life together. I did not think. She trailed off. Her eyes were wide and distant. Her voice came out small. He cannot be behind this. Malik said nothing. He did not need to. The evidence spoke louder than words. Vega turned to Munoz. We need backup. Digital crimes. Warrant division. Everything. I want eyes on that house before sundown. He turned back to Carolyn. I am sorry, ma'am. But if your grandson is connected to this, we are going to find out. Carolyn's hands trembled. She sank slowly into the armchair across the room as if the air had gone too heavy to stand. The house had gone still again. But not with peace. With the quiet that comes before a reckoning. Malik sat back in his chair, his face unreadable. If Tyler is the one behind this, he was not just watching us, he was building something. A digital cage. And we have no idea how long we have been inside it. The sun had started its slow descent behind the rooftops of the quiet suburban neighborhood, casting long shadows across the sidewalk as Detective Vega, Officer Munoz, and Carolyn approached her home. The house stood exactly as it always had. Calm, unassuming, nestled under the oak trees with its trimmed hedges and flower beds that Carolyn had tended for years. But the stillness now felt unnaturally quiet, like the air itself was holding its breath. Carolyn walked slowly, her hands clasped together tightly in front of her. She looked up at her own windows as though trying to see through the brick and glass into a reality she was not yet ready to face. Vega stopped at the front porch and turned to her. Is Tyler home? Carolyn nodded weakly. He should be. He rarely goes out lately. Spends most of his time upstairs in his room. Vega motioned to Munoz, who stepped forward and knocked on the front door. After a few seconds, Carolyn unlocked it and they all stepped inside. The air was faintly scented with the warmth of dinner that had not yet been made and the static stillness of a place untouched for hours. Tyler, Vega called out, his voice even but commanding. Tyler Pierce, this is Detective Vega. Please come downstairs. Silence. Carolyn swallowed hard and glanced toward the staircase. Vega waited a moment longer and then nodded. They began to ascend the steps slowly, one by one, the floorboards creaking under their measured steps. The second floor hallway stretched out in front of them, dimly lit and quiet. At the end of it was a closed door. Vega approached and knocked firmly. "Tyler, this is the police. We need to speak with you." A few seconds passed before the door creaked open slightly. Tyler stood in the doorway, his face pale, his eyes darting between them. He was tall, thin, with a mop of uncombed hair and a gray hoodie pulled halfway over his head. His laptop bag was still slung over his shoulder, as though he had been ready to flee or hide it. "Is something wrong?" he asked, his voice a little too calm, a little too rehearsed. "We have reason to believe," Vega began slowly, "that you have been accessing private security camera systems from homes in this neighborhood without authorization." Tyler blinked. "What? No, I think you must be confused. I do not know what you are talking about." Malik, who had come up quietly behind them, now stepped forward, his expression steady. "Then maybe you can explain why the data trace leads back to your IP address. The router in your home matches the digital fingerprint of the intrusion. The data packets were sent from this location." Tyler's eyes shifted. He glanced down the hallway, then back at Malik. His lips parted, then closed again. For a long moment no one spoke. The silence filled the room like a rising tide pressing on all sides. Finally Tyler exhaled and leaned against the doorframe. His voice dropped. Okay, yes. It was me. But it was not like what you think." "Go on," Vega said firmly. "At first it was just a joke. I was messing around one night, saw an open Wi-Fi signal from one of the neighbors. I connected to it just to see if I could. I was bored. I wanted to see if I still had it, like a challenge." Carolyn stepped closer, her face twisted with disbelief. Her voice cracked. "Tyler, you hacked our neighbors as a game." "I didn't mean anything by it," he said quickly. "I thought it was harmless. But then I realized I could access their router settings, and through that I could see the IP addresses of their devices, their cameras, their feeds." Vega frowned. "So you watched them, without their knowledge?" Tyler nodded. "I know it sounds bad, but I did not record anything. I did not share it. I was just watching. At first it was curiosity, but then it became something else. I could not stop. I started watching everyone, seeing how they lived, when they were gone, what they talked about in their living rooms. It felt like I had this window into lives I would never live. I felt in control for once." His voice faltered. "I didn't think it would go this far. I did not mean to hurt anyone." "You already did," Malik said quietly. "You violated the trust of every person in this neighborhood. You turned their privacy into your playground." Carolyn stared at him. Her heart felt like it was sinking. This boy she had raised after his parents passed. This young man she had fed, clothed, and encouraged. The child who once clung to her arm during thunderstorms was now standing in front of her, confessing to something far more sinister than she had ever imagined. "How could you?" she whispered. "How could you do this, Tyler?" He looked away, unable to meet her eyes. "I didn't mean for it to hurt anyone," he repeated. I thought no one would notice." Vega turned to Munoz. "Place him under arrest." Munoz stepped forward and began reading Tyler his rights. Tyler did not resist. He simply placed his hands behind his back and kept his eyes on the carpet. Carolyn stepped aside as they led him past her. She reached out almost instinctively as if to touch his shoulder, but stopped herself. Her hand hovered in the air and then slowly dropped. Vega paused beside her. "You did the right thing by calling us. This never would have come to light otherwise." She nodded, but her eyes were wet with tears. "I thought the threat was outside my door. I never thought it was upstairs. I never thought it was someone I loved." Vega looked at her gently. "Sometimes the truth hides in plain sight, and sometimes it lives under our own roof." Outside, the sky had turned a deep shade of purple. The neighborhood still looked peaceful from the porch. Children's bikes still leaned against fences. Porch lights blinked on one by one. But something had changed. The illusion of safety had been shattered. And in its place was the quiet knowledge that not every danger comes with noise. Some slip silently into the rooms we trust the most. As the officers drove away with Tyler in the back seat, Malik stood next to Carolyn on the sidewalk. He was just a kid, she whispered. Just a quiet kid. Malik looked ahead. Not all quiet people are dangerous. And not all familiar faces are harmless. The truth does not always live where we suspect it. Sometimes it hides where we least expect it. Carolyn said nothing. She stood there as the wind picked up around her house still behind her past still unraveling. And somewhere inside that silence a lesson had finally surfaced. If the story moved you or made you think deeply about the world we live in, don't forget to support the channel. Hit the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a powerful story like this one. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.